First Bangladesh, then Nepal. South Asia is witnessing a wave of youth-led Gen Z protests shaking governments to their very core. The question everyone is asking, is India next? The sparks of that same fire are already visible in the high-altitude desert of Ladakh, a region of stunning beauty now scarred by political turmoil, pushed to the brink by New Delhi's arrogance and broken promises. Why is a region that was promised development now on the verge of a revolt? Why is a globally respected activist like Sonam Wangchuk being arrested and branded a traitor? And why is the Indian government's only explanation the same old tired excuse, a so-called Pakistani hand behind every protest? This isn't just another demonstration. This is a sign of a nation beginning to fracture from within, a direct result of what even Indian analysts are calling monumental incompetence at the very top. This is Makhdoom Shahabuddin and you are watching Fact Flow. Ladakh has always been more than just mountains and glaciers. It is a region with immense strategic, cultural and historic significance, lying at the crossroads of India, Pakistan and China. For centuries it was a kingdom with deep cultural and religious ties to Tibet, a unique identity centered around its Buddhist heritage that set it apart from the rest of Jammu and Kashmir. Its modern story begins in 1947. During the chaos of partition, the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir became a disputed territory. To secure its succession, India enshrined Article 370 in its constitution, a solemn promise that would recognize Kashmir and Ladakh's unique identity. The pact guaranteed their own constitution, their own flag, and autonomy in all matters except defense, foreign affairs, and communications. It was the very foundation of their relationship with the Indian Union. For more than 7 decades, this fragile agreement held. The people of Ladakh often felt neglected by both Srinagar and New Delhi. Their demands for greater autonomy consistently ignored. But they still retained a fundamental sense of security in their constitutional guarantees, which protected their land and identity. But on 5th August 2019, the Modi government took a bulldozer to that agreement. In a move executed under the cover of a massive military lockdown and communications blackout, Article 370 was revoked unilaterally. Ladakh was separated from Jammu and Kashmir and demoted to a union territory ruled directly by a bureaucrat appointed by New Delhi with no legislative assembly of its own. Overnight, the people of Ladakh found themselves stripped of even the limited autonomy they once had. Their political identity was erased. The promise was not just broken, it was shattered. A betrayal, plain and simple. Today, Ladakhis are not demanding anything radical. They are asking for statehood and inclusion in the 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution. The schedule is a provision designed specifically to safeguard the land, resources, culture, and autonomy of tribal populations. They want what was once theirs by right, protection of their identity and power to make their own decisions. At the heart of this movement stands Sonam Wangchuk. Unlike most activists, he is not a politician. He is an educator, innovator, and environmentalist. He first gained fame for founding a school which revolutionized education for Ladakhi youth who were failed by the formal system. He is internationally celebrated for inventing the ice stupa, a revolutionary method of creating artificial glaciers to combat water shortages in the Himalayas, a solution born from local wisdom, not government policy. He inspired Bollywood's blockbuster Three Idiots. He is admired across the world for his work in sustainable living. He is by every measure a symbol of hope and integrity for his people. And yet today, the Indian state brands him a criminal. He was arrested, allegedly transported to a jail thousands of kilometers from his home and accused of inciting violence and sedition. His real crime, speaking truth to power. He undertook a 21-day fast subsisting only on water and salt to draw the world's attention to the betrayal of his people and the environmental destruction of his homeland. His protest was peaceful, his message clear. The state's response was brutal. The Indian government's playbook is predictable. When you can't defeat the argument, you defame the person. A coordinated smear campaign was launched by the pro-government media, attempting to discredit his dissent by labeling him anti-national or absurdly a Pakistani agent. These are tired, baseless accusations from a government that now sees a climate activist as an existential threat. Wangchuk's arrest has triggered outrage not just in Ladakh, but across India. Prominent voices have called it frightening, a terrifying sign of a government so insecure and arrogant that it prefers to jail its heroes rather than listen to them. To understand the full gravity of India's blunder in Ladakh, we must place it in the wider geopolitical context. This region is not just about glaciers and mountains. It's a critical theater in the great power competition between India and China, a situation intensified by India's alignment with the United States. Since the deadly Galwan clashes of 2020, where soldiers from both sides lost their lives, tensions have remained sky high. From Beijing's perspective, India's aggressive infrastructure push in Ladakh is not merely defensive. It is part of a largest US-led containment strategy. Through alliances like the Quad, with the US, Japan and Australia, India has positioned itself as a key regional counterweight to China. Beijing sees this as a direct provocation. This has created a classic security dilemma. India builds a road to supply its troops, calling it defense. China sees that road as a new threat, a channel for military mobilization and response in kind. The cycle of mistrust and escalation spins, making the entire region a tinderbox. But here's the supreme irony. While New Delhi dreams of being a global power and a check against China, it cannot even manage stability within its own crucial border regions by alienating the very people whose loyalty and cooperation are essential for frontier security. It dramatically weakens its own strategic positions. A stable, content local population is the first line of defense. An angry, betrayed one is a liability. The demands of Ladakh's people are simple, powerful, and rooted in the fear of erasure. First, political representation. They want a legislative assembly and statehood so that the laws governing their lives are made by their own elected representatives, not by a bureaucrat in distant capital who neither understands nor respects their way of life. Second, cultural protection. They demand safeguards for their land, language, and ancient traditions under the 6th schedule. They fear that without these protections, their unique Buddhist majority culture will be overwhelmed by the demographic changes. They are fighting to avoid becoming a minority in their own homeland. Third, environmental protection. They are protesting against the reckless industrial projects and corporate mining that threatens the fragile Himalayan ecosystem. They see their sacred mountains, glaciers, and rivers being sold off for profit, and they are fighting for a sustainable future. For the Gen Z, this is not just about the land or laws. It's about their very existence. Ladakhis feel voiceless in the decisions that directly affect them. The silence is now breaking into powerful chants of resistance. And yet, instead of listening, the Indian government falls back to its oldest, most cynical playbook: blame Pakistan. Instead of engaging with these demands, the Indian government has chosen the easy, cynical path to blame a neighboring country. This is not new. It is part of a well-worn playbook. Farmers protesting, call them Khalistani separatists. Students protesting, call them urban Naxals. Muslim demanding rights, call them terrorists. And now Ladakhis asking for autonomy, call them Pakistani agents. Each time, the government distracts its people with nationalism. The real problems, unemployment, poverty, inequality, corruption, are buried under anti-Pakistan hysteria. But this obsession blinds India into a dangerous reality. You cannot secure your borders while you are at war with your own border population. Ladakh is strategically vital, and turning its people into adversaries is a blunder of historic proportions. These protests are not Pakistan's doing. They are a symptom of system collapsing under its own weight. A country where hollow promises of federalism and secularism are being replaced by the iron fist of centralization and authoritarianism. From Kashmir to Manipur, from farmers in Punjab to minorities across the nation, the anger is spreading. And the final chapter of this story is being written in blood on the streets of Ladakh. As the youth and Gen Z rise up, their peaceful calls for justice have been met with state violence, and the cold mountain air now carries the news of young lives lost. This is not an isolated tragedy. It is the echo of silent screams from Kashmir, the burning anger in Manipur, and the daily oppression faced by minorities across India. This raises the ultimate question. Is this the spark that will finally ignite a revolution? Are we witnessing the moment where Gen Z, refusing to inherit a future of fear, takes the lead to reclaim their country, just as we saw so powerfully in Bangladesh and Nepal? The writing is on the wall. A government that silences heroes, crushes peaceful dissent, and blames imaginary enemies instead of solving real problems cannot hold indefinitely. Ladakh's protests are not an isolated incident. They are part of a much bigger story. A story of a nation struggling with its own contradictions and a youth unwilling to stay silent any longer. If you found this analysis insightful, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Pakistan Connect for more episodes of Fact Flow.